Aloha, what's up, my deal makers? So today on Ask Alex number 78, we had a special co-host, Elian Fuentes, and we talked about a bunch of stuff about deals. What were your biggest takeaways today?
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for having me on today. So my main takeaways were one, what is the market doing? What are the updates that we are seeing in this shifting market? And the second main takeaway is how to analyze deals and do deals virtually. But if you want to learn more, you have to watch the rest of the webinar.
What's up, everybody? Mic check. So today we have an exciting show, exciting webinar to discuss some deals, talk about the market update, what we're seeing right now. And we're gonna have a special co-host today. It's gonna be Eliam, one of our our acquisitions rock stars. He's gonna be coming in, sharing his insights, what he's seen on the ground level when it comes to acquisitions. And we're gonna go through a couple of his deals and it's gonna be amazing. Will, as you know, our regular co-host can't make it today. So we're gonna have somebody fill in with him, and Eliam's gonna be taking care of that. So let's get Eliam over here on the panelists here, and then we'll jump right in on a couple of things. It's gonna be an exciting show, you guys. Make sure that you're using the chat feature. As always, anybody that's in this room is typically somebody that's interested in real estate investing. There he is, the kid. What's up, Eliam?
There we go. Thank you for the introduction, Alex. Happy to be here for attending my first webinar as a co-host. Usually I'm an attendee, but now I'm a co-host.
Yeah, man. Welcome to the co-host spot. I think you've definitely been a valuable team member, and we've worked on a lot of deals. We've grown together over the year. You've been working with us now. So happy to have you on, man, and then fill in for our man Lowball Wall.
Lowball Wall. No, it's been a long 12 months, a lot of growth, a lot of change. A lot of deals have happened between then. So yeah, exciting things.
Yeah, so the reason we got Eliam in here is we're gonna be talking about deals that you guys, and we're making adjustments right now because just like you're seeing it all over the news, interest rates are going up. People are talking about the market crashing. Although I mean, we really don't see that. There's still an extreme amount of low inventory, and rates would really have to skyrocket up. Keep in mind, everybody, that the interest rates were so low, artificially low for so long, they're just starting to come back up to normal levels, historically normal levels. So, really there's no need to panic, but, we have been making adjustments, right, Liam, regarding how we're evaluating deals, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Especially on the acquisition sides now, a couple months back, we used to, base our ARV on doing it on appreciation and stuff like that, but we can't bet on appreciation anymore. So we have to stay conservative with our ARV to make sure that when we do exit the property, that we're still going to exit at a nice number that still meets our ROI and the rest of our buying criteria.
Yeah, exactly. And just because the interest rates are changing, our buying criteria can change. Sometimes we'll be more aggressive because we just sold a couple flips, right? Sometimes, we're going to be a little bit more conservative because we've taken on a lot of deals, and right now we're just kind of in the middle of getting those back onto the market. Things like that can happen. Or like with this 18-unit deal, we were kind of raising some capital for that. We kind of maybe took a little bit of a step back there to get that one to the finish line. So, whether it's the market, it's the amount of liquidity you have, whether it's, it's your first deal and you're just trying to get into something, like you're always going to be kind of making adjustments the way you're, evaluating deals. So let's jump in though. I want to give a quick update to the deal makers, kind of what's going on. That's usually what we do at the beginning part. Then we'll jump in a little bit into the, kind of what we're seeing with some of the market. And then I think we're going to jump right into the deals after that, right?
Yeah, Mr. Camacho, share some of your wins. What have you been up to? I know you've been busy out there in Arizona, busy out there in Mexico, busy out there in Hawaii. Seems like you're everywhere nowadays.
Life by design, man. You've been in Hawaii and you've definitely been around. I think you were in Europe this way. You beat me. You were in Europe this year. I have not been to Europe this year. So
yeah, Europe was a tremendous experience. Traveling gives a lot of perspective, and real estate has helped me, travel a little bit more now.
Yeah, definitely. So one big win is that we've seen now at the beginning part of progress on our 18-unit multifamily acquisition here in Phoenix. I'm staying in an Airbnb in Scottsdale, but I've been going back and forth to the property, meeting with contractors. We've already begun demo work on some of the 7 vacancies that we have. We've got a solid game plan. Already, we're starting to execute that with the different tradesmen, and we're working on some rough plumbing this week as well. So we're moving right along, man. We're seeing that this is going to be has a potential to be an incredibly profitable, valuable, long-term whole deal. So that's kind of moving forward. Had some dinner recently with some of these Arizona deal makers, Chris Vasquez, his brother, a couple of these other real estate investors in the market. So been kind of just checking in with them. Looks like they're also looking to potentially jump into that multifamily mindset because we're really avid and we're really active right in the single family space, but ultimately multifamily provides other opportunities, other potential long-term benefits that we can't ignore. And I'm seeing that happen as people have seen us buy a multifamily now. They're like, okay, cool, well maybe we'll partner up and do a deal with you on multifamily. So it's good to have those conversations and see other single family deal makers want to kind of evolve and get into the multifamily space as well. We've also been making some progress with some of our desert deals, Joshua Tree, 29 Palms, Yucca Valley. We have several projects there. I think it's 5, and they were behind schedule simply because labor shortage. It's really hot out there. It's harder to coordinate rehabs. It's a very hot real estate market out there as well. So a lot of the people that are in rehab are getting scooped up by the other investors, and the contractors are kind of scarce. So we've been making progress on that. As always, you're always solving problems. That's how it goes. What else? We've been making more progress on the overall project management system. So I'm really pleased about that because it's just the more, things that we're rehabbing, more properties that we're rehabbing, just more moving pieces. We need to have more organization for that. We just closed on, we're going to be closing on a deal in the 818, my hometown of the San Fernando Valley. So we're buying a Pacoima deal. It might be a flip, might be an ADU kind of long-term hold, not sure yet. But anytime we buy a property kind of in my neck of the woods, kind of like when we buy property in California City,
exactly.
It's kind of home for you, right? You're like, oh, this one's a little bit more special. And then we also closed on our first Las Vegas deal. Tell them about that a little bit, bro.
Oh yeah, Vegas deal. So apparently, so I've done a couple of deals now. So apparently all the deals that I've bought have been sight unseen, and they've been in different states. First one being in California City, where I grew up in, my parents out there. The second deal ended up being out there all the way in Las Vegas. And now that we're starting to see that, scaling is the name of the game and the name of the business, we're seeing that our skill sets are starting to expand across these states, and we're able to take down these deals on all these other states. We've taken down deals in Hawaii, now Arizona, that multi-unit, and Vegas. And we kind of look at it as like, well, it's another single family residence out there in, Vegas. I mean, we flip plenty of homes out here in California. I mean, we flip bigger properties out there in Hawaii and, taking down this big old 18-unit Arizona. What's another little flip out there in Las Vegas where we have a huge network and a huge support system that's going to be able to help get this deal across the line?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not a complicated deal. So you vetted it, you got the deal closed. I mean, and that was a long process too. I think from when we got the lead to when we closed was like 4 or 5 months at least. I remember talking to that lead on the patio over there, or the lanai in Maui. And then when we first got that, I mean, that was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that was a crazy story. So that one was the beginning of the year. Somewhere time in January, we made contact with the seller. Sometime in February, we locked it up early in February. Quick shout out to my parents, for teaching me Spanish, because that deal was all negotiated through Spanish and all through WhatsApp and all virtual. So that was a big win for me, and kind of to test my abilities, and a good challenge that I overcame.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always said from the beginning, I'm like, man, we're probably going to end up flipping this thing. We tried to wholesale it. Didn't really work out because of the long probate situation with the escrow. Anyways, it kept on coming back around. It's an entry-level cosmetic fix and flip in Vegas. We'll figure it out. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's what we do anyway, but it does fit our box, right? It isn't like completely outside of our box. It just happens to be in a different state, but we have, like you said, a huge network, a lot of people that can help us get that, get that property rehab. Plenty of investors we could lean on, and we're already, talking to several of them since we closed on that. So, and the last is I'm going to be meeting with some people about Airbnb, because the 18-unit, we're planning on doing some Airbnb on that property. So wanted to see who's doing Airbnb here in Arizona, Phoenix, Scottsdale. So I'm meeting with a couple of people, including the place that I'm staying at. This host has like 30 units under management. So once he found out that I was a real estate investor, we started talking a little bit, and we're going to go to lunch tomorrow. So that's kind of exciting. But going back to I think that's kind of the update, but the big questions right now are like kind of what's happening in the market. And so I wanted to talk about that kind of quickly. But what do you see that we're doing on the ground level right now to adjust for any changes that we're going to potentially see in the market in the next 6 months to a year? Ethan, what do you kind of
Yeah,
see?
let's kind of talk a little bit about the market and stuff, especially here in acquisition side. We all know that interest rates are rising. Homes are sitting on the market for a little bit more days longer. Days on market are a little longer now. So it would, investors or your homeowners, it's not being able to access this capital. It's starting to get harder for them to get financing. So obviously, it affects, us investors when we're getting to relist these properties and sell these properties because, we have holding costs to consider. We have, our ARV that we have to make sure that we're going to hit. Now we lose money and make sure everybody gets paid on the deal. But as far as like the market shifting now, it's like we can't be too aggressive when we're comping out properties because, well, the market's shifting, right? We can't be too aggressive. So we have to play the conservative game to make sure like, hey, if a comp sold last week at, for example, if the comp sold last week at 550, we'll be lucky if we get 550 3 months or 6 months from now. So we might as well be conservative and say, hey, we're going to get at least 530. The comp, that's the highest comp was at 550 last week. That's the highest we're going to get probably in 6 months from now. We're not going to get nothing more than that no more because appreciation is not going to be on our side as much over this past 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And what I'm seeing is, I'm talking to different investors from across the country. Fortunately, we're connected, right, with people that are doing deals. I mean, from Florida, Texas, Oregon, Washington, and so we're talking to these people and seeing what they're seeing. And what I'm hearing from everybody is typically, yes, things are starting to contract a little bit. However, like instead of getting like 10 offers, we're getting like 3 or 4. So it just really comes down to like, so what we're seeing is we're not going to be buying those oddball properties, right? The ones that maybe we'd be a little bit more aggressive because there's such a shortage of inventory. 6 months ago, we are maybe being a little bit more aggressive, such as like a B Street. Remember, we bought that property with the manufactured. We might not buy that property, or maybe we'd be, much more conservative because it is a little bit of a, kind of different and outlier. It isn't the typical cookie cutter house anymore. I'm also, seeing that people are talking about getting less Airbnb traffic, right? They're talking about, hey, I'm still making money on my Airbnb, but I'm just getting less bookings, right? As people maybe tighten up a little bit, they're just like starting to be more concerned about what's happening in the economy. So we are seeing some less offers, but because of that, like you said, we're adjusting our ARVs. We're no longer thinking like, oh, best case scenario, this might go up a little bit more. Now, in the best case scenario, it stays even or it goes down a little bit. That's what we're seeing now. And I've also been through several real estate cycles. And what I've noticed, from the last recession was that there really was kind of the contraction really starts at the top. I've heard from other investors that they're saying, hey, yeah, my stuff that's over $1 million is kind of sitting much longer, than the stuff that, it's under $1 million. I'm not having problems selling the stuff that's under $1 million. That was an investor in Vegas. So really just tapping into like what everybody's talking about. And then for us, still buying, but buying at, we always buy at least around 30% of potential ARV. So, we're buying with equity already built in. And we're seeing it in case if we're conservative on the analysis of deals, but we're still buying good deals. Remember, we'll be back to market usually in 30, 60, 90 days or less. And so therefore, we're not holding stuff long term like a developer or like a ADU that's going to take a year. That's probably not the type of transactions that I would be going into or recommending people go into right now. So doing a lot of that, and then we're also working on some of our deals that we're seeing. Hey, can we sell this property? We're doing less rehab. Do we really need to do a full rehab, such as the case at other properties in Maui? Because every market's different, right? Like, you're analyzing stuff in California City, we're doing stuff in Hawaii. Like, you got to really analyze it for that market. And so we're working on executing that as one of our deals where we thought we could maybe put in a little bit more on that property. We decided to put less, and we're gonna make almost just as much. We want to be back to market as soon as possible. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And as well with our analysis too, Steve saying that the market is shifting, our analysis tool, our flip deal calculator is kind of already built in case that worst case scenario does happen. And for us, most of our deals, that worst case scenario is we break even or we only make a couple grand. So if that worst case scenario does hit because of the market, shifting and all these things happening, worst case scenario, we'll break even or we'll make a couple grand because we incorporated that from the beginning of our analysis.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we talk about we're operating a recession resistant. There's nothing like, completely immune to, there being change in the economy. But when we're dealing with the kind of the most highly desirable product, which is just a single family house for an entry level buyer, and then we're putting good product onto the market, doing good marketing and having a great team, we kind of just run the whole thing. and then having stuff hit the market like, very quickly after we purchase it, because that's our business model, then we don't have the same, we're insulated a little bit more than potentially someone that is doing other types of projects that are more dependent on, more of like say, for example, the luxury market. That I imagine that could be, take a pretty big hit if, rates really go up, and then, these luxury buyers, don't really want to buy anymore, and things, because that, $1.5 million house is more likely to go down to 1.2, 1.25 than that $300,000 house going down to like 150, or like, 175. So that's something that we keep a close eye on: interest rates, inventory, and then making sure we're executing our business model, because that way, we're putting back on the market stuff that usually always has, a lot of end buyers, whether, because a lot of the people that was buying because rates were so low, they're just not going to buy anymore. But there's still going to be people that are buying that usually just have to buy, and they're moving to a certain area. They've outgrown their certain, wherever they're living at now. And so now you're going to see a lot more of the people that absolutely have to buy property right now, and they're probably going to get pretty decent deals, because they're right now it's not as competitive, and you're not seeing 10 offers on a property. So this is a chance for people to kind of get in there, get in the door where they haven't in the last 6 months or so. But anyway, any questions about that? Let's answer some questions, my dude, and then let's jump into the deal analysis, because that's what we're here for, to look at deals today. What's up, everybody?
Gotcha. We got the first question from Roger. He said, what percentage of deals are you currently getting through MLS, wholesalers, and cold calling? So yeah, I can answer that one right there. So a lot of our deals most of our deals come from MLS and wholesalers. So like we mentioned before, we're open to working with agents, investors, wholesalers. We also do our own direct to seller marketing as well. We haven't done cold calling in a while. We actually transitioned into do SMS blasting, which we also found some success from it, running about 2 to 3 deals over the past 6 to 8 months from doing that SMS blasting campaign, where we reach out to direct to sellers, or we reach out direct to agents as well. So sometimes when we reach out directly to these agents, they have pocket listings that they haven't even listed on the MLS yet, that we'll be able to scoop up before, a lot of people get eyes on that property. But I would say, yeah, I mean, most of our business, I don't know exactly the percentage of it, but it would be kind of like, 50-50 wholesalers and MLS at the moment right now, and including some SMS blasting and PPC as well.
Yeah. What's up, Roger? Shout out. I mean, my man over in Vegas. And that has changed for us, right? Where sometimes, we were like you said with the cold calling, we really wanted that campaign to work. It didn't work. We cut it off because it just, other people, they're crushing it. So you just got to pay attention to what's working for you and double down on it. But it is always changing. We're always seeing how the texting. I was about to give up on that, and then a couple deals hit, and I was like, okay, cool, let's keep it going, because it's like if it's not working, I don't want to team spending time on that, right? Let me see, what are the questions we have before we jump into the deals.
Devin said, PPC, could you explain? Yeah, so PPC is pay-per-click. So we have a website going on, Alex Camacho Buys Homes. And in that website, we try to drive, I think with Google ads, we drive traffic towards our website, and we pay per click. So for every time someone clicks on our website, we have to kind of pay for that to drive traffic to our website. And in our website, there's a form that says, hey, we buy houses. If you want to receive an offer, submit your information below. Some people submit the first name, last name, their email, contact information, and their home address. And those tend to be some of the hottest leads, because that is a homeowner reaching out directly to an investor like us saying, hey, I need help. They're raising their hand and saying, I need help selling my home. So we already know right off the bat, there's motivation within that seller. Now it's just up to us, the acquisitions guy, to hop on a phone call and talk to them more and get their story and seeing what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And we've done very well with PPC. The thing is, it can be extremely expensive real quick, but there's also a lot of control, like turning on the dial, turning it off. And we've been learning a lot about the PPC from some of the masterminds that we're in. And I think this year we're going to definitely start doing more of it. Like I said, man, it can go up real quick. You're spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month like this. And if you don't convert in 2-3 months, I mean, that could be 60 G's down the drain without not even a deal. But fortunately we have closers like you, Will, and I'm confident that we'll continue to get better at that type of marketing, because I'll tell you, the first year that I was in this business on my own completely, which was this is my third full year on my own. I had 2.5 years before that, working for other investors. Our first year, I remember we did 2 fat deals on PPC, like $100,000 rips. And I stopped doing the marketing because I didn't see it was working until like, it didn't really hit until month 6. And then I got these 2 monster deals. And then those didn't really kind of actually develop into what I saw them as being very profitable towards like that 1 year. And then I cut it off. And then in hindsight, I was like, damn, but I didn't really have the team to support me on it. And at that time, and it was just different. But in hindsight, I regret like not doubling down more on it because we got these 2 monster deals from it. And if I would have been tracking my numbers a little better, I think that I would have spent more money on it and kept on doing a lot more back then. But anyhow, awesome. Any other questions, my dude?
Yeah, let's answer one more question so we get on to these deal reviews. So we have from Roshan saying, so you are all thinking we're going to have a market crash ? How is Alex's team getting ready for this? And do you have emergency cash? If so, for how many months?
Yeah. So great question, Roshan. What's up? So yeah, we're definitely preparing by our best case scenarios would no longer have any potential real high upside as far as, like he was saying earlier, we have a calculator that calculates potential best case scenario. And in that best case scenario, what we would calculate before is, hey, do we get like this crazy buyer that really like the property? Do we have, is it a unique property that someone might bid it up? We're in a market that's very competitive. People are bidding things up, appreciation. Those were all things we were kind of maybe potentially counting on. So if we thought a house was going to maybe, a sell for 700,000, kind of best case scenario with appreciation, then we might make that 650. So we're not being so optimistic anymore about the future as far as the resale values. And we're going to see either kind of more of a tailing off or just more kind of a plateau to potentially decline of 5-10%. And when I say 5 to 10%, I mean, that means potentially in the next 6 months. So that means in a year, yes, the home values could go down 20%. So we're calculating for that. So if your $500,000 house, today is worth 500 and it goes down 20%, next year, it's worth 400. So, but we're buying that property, at 350. And then, worst case scenario for us, we're probably selling that at 450, right? And then we're breaking even, or, we're making a couple of bucks in that scenario because we're not going to have that property for a year. Remember, it's going to be back onto the market within 30, 60, 90 days. So that's not what we're doing. We're calculating for that. We're also keeping, we always have a certain amount of reserves that will hold us over. And then we always also have deals that are being sold that are bringing back funds into the company. So we're not really that concerned about that stuff. We also manage some very low expenses for the amount of deals that we currently are operating in. So we run real lean and mean, and we could pivot if necessary, reduce expenses. Whatever we need to do, we can do it. I've already learned from the last market crash to be able to pivot and be able to reduce expenses. And if I see that, then I'll be, the first to like act on that. So that's what we're doing to prepare.
Hey, yeah. Awesome answer, Alex. So yeah, let's jump into a couple of these deal reviews. So these deal reviews are actually some of my first deals that I've gotten with you guys. So let's kind of go over one of them right here. Let me share my screen.
Yeah. So what Eliam is going to do now, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is he's going to review, is it the Great Circle property?
Yeah, the Great Circle one.
Yeah. So he's going to review that entry-level cosmetic fix and flip, but because it was his first deal, you always remember your first deal the most. And then even in granular detail, I feel like that's the case, right? On deal number 10, you're not going to remember as much of the granular detail and what you learned on getting that deal as you did on your first one. So excited. I can't say I remember all the details of this one because for me, it wasn't my first one. But go right ahead and share what you saw, and then maybe we could review the numbers and see how this one kind of turned out. Kind of go from there, right?
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I think this was probably like the 20th house you bought last year. So of course, yeah, you remember the small, tiny details if we had septic or not septic in the house. But yeah, so this deal actually was in California City. And this deal came from a wholesaler. And the way we met this wholesaler is because we threw a downtown LA investor meetup. The first one we ever threw out there in downtown LA. If you haven't came to one of our meetups, you definitely check it out. We have tacos, bar there, and great presentations. But this wholesaler connected with Alex at the meeting saying, hey, I want to do a deal with you guys. I got this property out there in California City. I see that you guys are buying. And Alex was like, all right, yeah, you should go definitely talk to me, Eliam. That's the main guy. I grew up out here in California City. And the wholesaler started talking to me. So we connected, we started talking about it. And us in acquisitions, we typically look for 4 things. We target the motivation, we target the condition, price, and the timeline. So the motivation to this property right here, here in California City, was basically the homeowner was out of state, tenants left the property a mess, he wanted to exit. Great. And then the wholesaler started talking to me more about the condition of the property. And when she presented me to the condition of the property, she said that, hey, the tenants left a huge mess. It needs a lot of work. You guys need to start, preparing it. And the price, when she told me the price, it was in our buying range off the bat. So I knew there was, some way we could work together and room for negotiation. And timeline, she said, hey, can you guys close in 21 days? Cool. We've closed properties in 14 days, 7 days, 21 days, no problem for us. So when I collected these 4 pieces of information, that's when I could start analyzing the deal and starting seeing what information that I need to look for and what research and what is the market telling me in this area. So what I like to do is I like going on to kind of the Google map view, because we're buying deals virtually, right? Am I going to spend 2.5 hours driving all the way to California City when I'm in Orange County? Or can I just, Google map view this and, reach out to my support system out there, project managers, people that we have boots on the ground out there in these areas to kind of validate the project for me.
And just to play devil's advocate, so we buy property with like right next to vacant lots and like kind of looks like it may be a busy street.
So this street is actually not that busy. So my parents kind of live 2 streets over from this where I grew up out there. So not that busy. California City is not a heavily traffic area. So a street could look busy, but it's mostly a ghost town or empty.
Okay.
So kind of we have the Google map view right here that we've seen. Same exact property on the right side to the left side, probably same builder back then. So once I kind of have a feel for the neighborhood and feel for the area, I like to go on Zillow and kind of see what are the characteristics. So right here, obviously they have, the people we sold it to are looking to rent out the property, and we already fixed and flipped it already. So this was our end product. But the reason why I go on Zillow is because I want to see the characteristics of the home I'm looking at. So we got, a good 3-bed, 2-bath, about 1,280 square feet, and kind of go to the facts and the features. So anything that kind of tells me single family, obviously kind of the features have changed. So now they're doing a rental for it. But kind of what I'm looking for is like, what is this property telling me? Is there anything that it's sticking out to me, like year built, 1987, single family, zoning, and stuff like that? That way, when I go look at my comps, I could look for comps that match this exact characteristic. From there, we have the pictures, the before pictures of the property, the kind of the ones the wholesaler sent to me, and some of them that I took. So for us, the wholesaler was telling us it was like really bad condition. And for our project manager, Paul, he's like, well, I've done plenty of those before. Doesn't look too bad to me. And we've already done flips like that in the past that have these, same look cosmetic look.
Yeah, and then when you're looking at the pictures, what are you looking at specifically? Like what is it that you kind of gravitate towards looking at? Because it's easy to just see a bunch of pictures, but what are you paying close attention to when you're analyzing the deal?
So when I'm analyzing the deal in terms of condition, when I see these pictures that, people send to us, I'm looking if there's any watermarks on the roof, if there's any exposed electricity or plumbing, or any like major red flags, like holes in the walls, or let's say the roof looks sagging down and stuff like that. I look for major red flags like that. I also ask questions for them to walk me through the description of the property, because the main systems are the most expensive, right? So we have HVAC, plumbing, electricity, roof. And if those things are not operable or not in great condition by the looks of the picture or by the description they told me, then I know that the rehab may be a little bit on the higher end. But when the wholesaler presented to me, I wasn't able to find any of these things besides the normal wear and tear a tenant has left, some missing things back, outdated kitchen cabinets. We have old flooring, not remodeled bathrooms. So okay, cool. This looks just pretty cosmetic, So that's kind of how I looked at the property right here.
Excuse me. Okay. The reason I asked that question is because I think we're so used to going through this motions of looking at these deals that sometimes people that are on the call might not be as familiar as that kind of that process. And what I'm looking for also in the pictures is trying to get a flow for the property as well, to like kind of layout wise. Oh, is there 3 bedrooms? Okay, well, let me see the 3 bedrooms. What sizes do they look like? And also just trying to understand if there's any bonus areas or something that I'm not potentially seeing, or I might have follow-up questions about. There could be like a bathroom inside of a garage. I'm like, hey, is there a, what's going on there? Like, is that something that's permitted, not permitted? So there's additional questions that might arise if you're paying attention to the pictures and you're looking at, and you know what to kind of look for. So we're looking for potential higher rehab. We're looking for potential bonus areas that maybe have not been described or seen, and then just anything else that we might have questions about that are just not clear based on the way the opportunity is being presented to us.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. And these, when you're communicating with agents or wholesalers about the photos that you receive about a property that you want to invest in, these are, good conversation topics, right? If you see a watermark on the roof, or if you see like something like the roof is sagging, like, hey, but you ask that wholesaler, you ask that agent, like, hey, tell me more about the roof. Like, what's the story behind that? Was there a leak not too long ago? Is it fixed? What does the homeowner know about this? That way you can start prompting more questions and getting more answers to the actual description of the property and getting to know it like the back of your hand.
Yeah, definitely. Also, that becomes helpful. I want to add real quickly, when you are able to like know a little bit more about the subject property, because then what are you going to do? You're going to eventually, at some point of this process, go compare it to other properties that have been sold. So how are you able to effectively compare it to those other properties if you are missing information on the subject property that you're looking at? So that's why you have to dig deeper if the numbers are close enough for you to put a deal together, and you really need to understand what you're kind of comparing it to, because you could be comparing, a property that's far inferior or far superior, if you don't have enough information. So that, I think that's definitely a point I'd like to make, because that's kind of the art of discovering a deal and kind of creating a deal, where people think they're just going to find a deal. No, like typically through your process of analyzing opportunity after opportunity, you're going to create the right, situation for you to get some type of property that has enough of a margin for you to buy as an investment deal. But there is a lot of sifting, and I mean, how many deals do you think you looked at before you bought this property, your first one?
Probably like hundreds, probably before then. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay,
So
cool.
it's a bunch of repetition for that one. But yeah, funny enough that you say that. There's a couple of things that I missed out that I didn't look for in the property. For example, septic being one of them. Completely forgot about asking if there's a septic in the house, or is it sewer? Because if it's sewer, then it's city operated and it's cool. You don't need to really spend money on that. But septic, it's responsibility of the homeowner. So if the home is on septic system, it's responsibility of the homeowner. So we have to make sure we get a septic certification. If there's a pump needed to be performed on the property because it's backed up or something, and that's extra money that would cost us on the rehab side when we're going on to resell this property or when we're purchasing this property.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, what else we going to cover on this deal?
So yeah, let's once we kind of have a general idea what the condition is, what we're looking at, let's try to see if we can find some comps in the area. So this purchase was made in November. So when we got this lead, it was done in sometime in November. So we're going to, back trace it to what the comps were telling us back in November. So when I go on the MLS, if you have MLS access, we go is, we check off the box, active under contract, pending, and closed. The reason why we choose all these things, because these are what the market's actually telling us from back then when we looked at it. So just quickly right here, go back to June. So that's the reason why I'm picking June, because it's 6 months before that November timeline. And then we'll go back to November 21, kind of where we purchased the property. We closed sometime in December. So let's just do December, see what the market was telling us at that time. So just enter the address right here, 8429 Great Circle Drive. Right here, you could do a mile radius. So California City, not being a huge town, at the time we would use the entire town as a comp. As more inventory was there, more sales were being done. We started, lowering down our range to 1 mile. Before, when we started buying deals out there, we said 3 miles because there wasn't that many sales going on. But now that there's a lot of sales going on, a lot of more action there in California City, we have lowered down our mile radius, just one, which is still big compared to when you do these bigger cities like Los Angeles, where you want to do half a mile radius or even sometimes lower. But here in these desert towns, where there's not many population, that many houses, you can kind of use the entire town as a comp. So we got, the dates right there. We have the mile, 8429 Great Circle Drive. Right there. And we have the living area, which is 1281. What we did was we did like a margin, which is 1,000 to about 1,500. So any home that appears in 1,000 to 1,500. And we did a price of 220 plus. The reason why I did a price at 220 plus was because the past deals that we have done, we have bought them in a certain pocket range. We have bought them anywhere between 140,000 to upwards to 160,000 in that city right there. And every time we listed and we finished the deal, we ended up selling those deals for about 220 plus or 230 plus. Depends on the characteristics, which is why I put that filter right there of 220 plus, because I just want to see comps that show that.
Yeah, and let me make a point about that. And the reason you're doing that is this is based off of experience. Right now, like you said, we've been buying property around these prices, around these sizes, and we're reselling them from around these prices. Once you acquire property or two and do a couple of deals in a certain area, now you kind of have a better read on that, and you have a better also idea of what you probably could sell that property, and then also you could act faster and with more confidence. So that's, I think, the value of doing these deals and then expanding. For us, it wasn't like we did California City right away, right? We were doing Palmdale, Lancaster, which have a lot of large populations compared to California City and Mojave and Rosamond, which is a little bit further out, a little bit more tertiary, you would call it. And so, but now it's like, okay, cool. We know when we look at a deal, if it's around 140, 130, 150, and it's around this size in this area, it's probably a deal we should look into, and probably going to be pretty close unless it's a crazy heavy rehab, right? So I think that we're seeing that now within our deal flow, with taking more and more deals down in this area because we know the numbers, right?
Yeah, you're correct on that. Once you kind of know your market, know your buying range, you can act faster. I remember this lead was presenting to us on a Wednesday night when we hosted the meetup, and we had to make our decision by like Friday morning, Friday evening. So in those 24 to 48 hours, we had to perform our due diligence. And me being at the time a full-time college student, trying to pay attention in class, trying to coordinate our project manager, send out the contractor to go validate the rehab for us, get a home inspector in there for us, and try to do all these due diligence pieces going in. And most importantly, doing all this virtually and making sure the numbers hit. It was pretty good that we were able to act fast because we knew that market and we're active buyers in that area.
Yep. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the comps. Let's see what we got.
So yeah. Let's take a look at the map. So like I said, we have the dates, we have the filters in. So this is what the market was kind of telling us at the time. They did pretty good activity at the time. We know when the market was hot that time in the summer, we had appreciation with us. We were pretty aggressive. Some of the comps that kind of stuck out to me at the time were these ones that are the closest ones by here, actually. This one right here that sold for 235. Right here. So this one sold for 235, about a little bit same square footage than us, a couple years older than us, and went quick, right? It was 3 days on market, right? It lasted only. And this is kind of how it looked like on the inside. And what we see here is, all right, this is a nice home, nice family lived in it, took care of it. They designed the house to their style and to their liking. But it's not flipped, right? It's not really modern, but it's still nice. Nice home family would come in and live in it, right? Nice patio, nice balcony out there that we see. And they're like, okay, cool. This one sold for 235. This is a great comp to pay attention to. And then we started looking at other ones right here. All right, this other 235. I just logged out. 1 second, and just log right back in.
Yeah, so all these little data pieces are what we like to say is like just data points, right? Just data point, like, okay, market, that's one data point. Data point, what our deals in the market have done there. Data point, all these little data points, and then as an investor, it's your job to get all that information and filter that down and make a decision logically based off all the information you have. And that's kind of what we analyze, right? We analyze we want to disqualify it first. Is there any reason we should not continue talking about this deal or this lead or this, these numbers for this particular deal? Or is there, does this potentially work? And then we continue to get the data, and then, but you got to be able to process these opportunities fast. I mean, I've talked about this in many webinars and many meetups and to many new investors, that the speed, like you just mentioned earlier, the speed in which you perform and get to opportunities is going to determine how many, opportunities you take advantage of and how many deals you do. If you're, it takes you a day or two. Sometimes, we look at opportunities that we actually are looking at the property the same day that we get it. Sometimes within hours. So, I mean, that's how you have to be able to operate. Is there, you having trouble with your computer?
Yeah, I'm just logging in right here for us right now.
Okay. Yeah. So, do we have any questions here? Let me check the chat and see if we have anything else. You guys know we're just providing these, kind of deal reviews. So, I show you how we're making adjustments, what we're doing. Okay, what profit? Let me see. Let's see. I think we have a couple. Let me answer a couple.
Yeah, while I get this thing set up for us right here.
Okay, so Noriel, yeah, we have a couple websites, bro. We have like 2 or 3 websites. I'll send you that on a private message. But yeah, we have a couple. How much does that cost you on average? Okay, so I think he was talking about probably the PPC advertising or whatnot. Usually the minimum right now, we're only spending like $3,000 a month on that, but you should really be spending more than that if you're going to be doing that as one of your primary functions of primary sources of leads. So you were all thinking, okay, no, we already answered that. What profit margins do you calculate when analyzing deals in LA, SoCal area? So Salvador asked that question. The way we calculate it is it's more kind of like how much minimum profit you want to make per market. So let me answer this question, Elam, and then you could take back over. So for example, in the Antelope Valley, we're typically buying houses in the $150,000 to $250,000 purchase price range. We're looking at minimum profit over there is to make at least $35,000 profit, typically minimum there. When we're buying up in core Los Angeles, we're buying it more in a higher purchase price, closer to the $400,000 to $500,000 purchase price range. And in those deals, we're looking to make at least $60,000 typically. And then the other desert deals that we're doing in Joshua Tree and 29 Palms, that's kind of similar to Antelope Valley, where we're typically buying houses $250,000 to $350,000, and we're looking on that. See, some of the stuff there we're holding, but if we were gonna do a flip on that, we want to make at least about $50,000 on those that we are flipping in the desert. So hopefully that answers your question. It's more of kind of not a percentage, but more so how much you want to make based off kind of the purchase price that we're at. And usually it does come back to some percentage on the calculator, but that's kind of the way we look at it. Does it hit our minimum profit with the amount of risk that we're going to take and capital that we're going to use to, buy this property and do this deal? So after you, Liam, where we at?
Yeah. So the next comp that I saw, we already examined this first one right here. A nice family lived in. It was not flipped. And we saw this other one right here nearby. This one also closed for $235,000. A little bit more square footage than us, probably 20, couple dozen. Same acres, same lot size. And this one also as well was just outdated, nice lived in, was not flipped. Family took good care of it. They probably had a cleaner, before they listed the property to make sure it's signed and they get as much as they can for this property, right? So nothing that we haven't not seen before. And the way our thinking process was like, hey, well, if these outdated comps and these nice just family lived in are selling for $235,000, that means we have a stable price at that price range. Meaning if we were just go into our property and just clean it up and pay a cleaner and take all the trash out, we'd get $235,000 for this property because it looks exactly like what the comps are saying here as well. And that was kind of our thought process in this when we were analyzing this deal. Then another one that came up here was this 250 one. Now this is kind of when our eyes started opening up. I was like, hey, like there's something going on here. These comps are, pretty higher end. It's the summer, and remember the summertime appreciation was on our side, and things were, moving forward. So we also saw like, hey, like this one as well. There's nothing special going on in this house besides a nice family will live into it. They took care of it. And we're starting to see is like, hey, what if we flipped our property and we give it a modern look? We'd probably get more than it. And funny enough, we ended up being right. But at the time, we still wanted to make sure that numbers were conservative and still, make sense and not be too aggressive, because you don't want to put all your bet on.
Because the trick is to be conservative enough, but not so conservative that you're getting yourself out of the deal, because you're like, no, it's not going to work, and they're not going to take that low ball numbers. So and also that, I think it was one of our first properties that we bought out there in California City, so we didn't really want to be too bullish and too optimistic to begin with on there. So all right, well, good stuff, man. So are you going to review the numbers here, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. When we were in Cal City, that's probably like our third or fourth house that we bought out there at the time. So we're still trying to testing things out, making sure we had that proof of concept. So we ended up locking up this deal at 165 out there. And we said our ARV was going to be only 245. And our project manager, Paul, said, hey, this is going to be a pretty easy rehab, cosmetic, about 35K. And it's going to be in less than 90 days because there's nothing, we have the teamwork there. We have the team in place to be able to knock this thing out. So at the time, we're like, okay, cool. It meets our ROI of that minimum 30%. At the time, our minimum profit was a little bit lower when we were starting the company out there in California City. 22K, solid base hit, doesn't take too much effort, doesn't take too much of our time, too much of our resources. It's not a big headache. It's pretty entry level flip, the way we saw it. So we're like, okay, cool. Like we'll be able to, hit. That's how the numbers panned out. Let me zoom in for you guys. And the base case, right? And then the best, we're like, okay, cool. I mean, we have it locked up for 165. And then let's say we do get more than what we thought, right? Let's say we get that. We set the highest comp in the area. We get 255 for that property. And we ended up, doing this rehab in 30,000 only, right? And okay, cool. Now we're getting more profit on our deal at the time. Like, okay, cool. We like these numbers that we're seeing, and there's no way we can pass on this deal. But then we also have to be like, hey, what's the worst case? Like we were saying in the beginning of the webinar, let's say the market crashes in a week or whatever. Like let's say the market goes upside down. Like how are we looking on this deal? So 165 locked up. We set our ARV. Let's say we can only sell this thing for 230. Because we saw all the previous comps that were not even flipped, something for 230. Let's say we go over budget on this property. Something pops up and the main system needs to be replaced. We're like, cool. We don't lose money. We don't make a lot of money. We did put a lot of effort and time, and we make about $3,000. That would be the worst case scenario, right? That would be the worst case scenario. Everything goes wrong in our deal, and we only make $3,000. And that goes back to our deal calculator saying it's kind of resistance proof for saying like if shit hits the fan, at least we're breaking even or making a couple $100, couple $1,000 on our deals.
Yeah. And that one hit all our numbers. If we didn't feel we'd lose any money or we'd break even, and then it hit our, our kind of our close to our minimum profit.
Yeah. And so that was kind of that deal. But what the deal actually ended up being, we actually ended up, because we have a rockstar agent out there in Aloha Valley who gets us top dollar, and appreciation continue to carry into the rest of 2021. We actually sold this property for 265. So we got 20K more than what we thought we were going to do. And we actually went under budget, which is a great thing. And we actually did this deal in about $32,000. So we ended up getting an 88% ROI on this deal, a $44,000 rip on this deal before paying all our other costs. We did it in 90 days.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the type of deals that we love, that just like it's a very low downside, and it's going to hit our base hit numbers. And then if we do well, shoot, we probably make a couple extra bucks. And look,
and to kind of point out the rest of the things as well here on this calculator, we only had to bring about $70,000 to the table for this deal, right, Alex?
Yeah, and that's once again another reason why we invest out there, because of the ability to do more deals with less money. So if you see under the cash investment section of the calculator, we only ended up using about $67,000 of our capital to do this flip. That's a great return, right? Use 67, get back 44 plus your 67. We'll do 10 of those if we could a month. So that's what we're picking up, a couple a month, because these base hit deals, once you have the system in place and you have the capital to use, you can do a couple of these for not as much as you would think, right? Like typically in LA, I think we need to spend almost double that to do a deal in the $400,000 to $500,000 purchase range. We typically need closer to 125,000. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. What they call it, these desert towns, these smaller rural areas away from Los Angeles there is definitely opportunity, and you only have to raise little low amounts of capital to kind of make great ROIs and great returns on these properties out there.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say though, on these outlying areas such as Mojave, Cal City, they are also going to be more prone to like kind of stalling or reducing in value, or coming down in value, probably a little bit more than core Palmdale or core Los Angeles. So on those out there, I mean, we'll probably start being a little bit more conservative on even more on the ARV than a core Los Angeles, South LA deal, for example. But it comes out to the same thing. If we're putting properties onto the market, we're still getting the prices, but we're just maybe seeing less offers. Until we see a dramatic difference, we're going to continue to like do deals because they are still selling. We won't be as aggressive with potential resale or optimistic on the ARV. Right.
Yeah, and to kind of address some questions now, Devin said, we bought it in November. Can you please re-explain why the dates were June to December? So the reason why the dates were June to December is, well, we bought it in November 2021. Whenever we analyze deals, we always base off the comps from 3 to 6 months prior to selling the property. I mean, 6 months, we go back up to 6 months. So at the time, I had to go back all the way to June to see what the market was telling me, because I couldn't, foresee in the future what's happening now in June of 2022, or what was going to happen in February when we finally sold that property. So I couldn't, kind of see those comps. We had to set those comps for the future. So whenever, let's say, for example, you analyze a deal today, which is June 1st, 2022, you could go all the way back up to January of 2022 to kind of see what the market has been telling you. Because in the fix and flip game, you want to base off your deals off of 6 months. You kind of don't want to go more than 6 months unless there's no comps in the area. But if there's plenty of comps in the past 3 months or 6 months, I mean, that's kind of where the market is at the moment.
Yeah. And if there's any more questions in the chat, please let us know. I did want to kind of add to that. One of our little hacks that we do, one of these things that is kind of simple and kind of obvious, but not a lot of people do it, is to call the pending comps and to have conversation with agents about that if you're analyzing a deal, because they can provide you with a very valuable insight as to what they got or how much activity they're getting. So active and or pending listings right now, where the market's uncertain, it's really helpful right now to talk to those agents and find out what's happening with those listings, because those are for sale right now, right? And they're either active and they're getting activity, or they're pending and they've already accepted an offer. We want to know kind of where it helps you identify where the market is going. If like these 3 pending comps in the area you're analyzing all got a little bit under asking, but they still went into escrow close to asking, and then those numbers, and you can base your what you're going to do with your deal off of those potential numbers they're going to close, and there will be comps for you once you're either go for a refinance or you're going to go and resell a property down the road, because that'll be a relevant comp for you, right? So we do that often. Awesome. Well, we're coming down to the end here, guys. We wanted to analyze this deal. I think we were going to talk a little bit about the Vegas deal, but I think we were running a little bit short on time. What we wanted to cover was mainly kind of what we're seeing right now with the market. All the properties that we're working on are still getting multiple offers, just not as many. But we are seeing with other investors that they're talking about getting less offers. So we just got to make adjustments based off of that. But what else were we going to cover? Were we going to cover the Vegas deal, or I think we're running a little bit light on time?
We might be running a little bit light on time, but I mean, we could say that one for another webinar as well on how to buy a deal across a different state.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's see if there's any other questions then from the audience. I see there's 37 people on here, so thank you guys for your time. Make sure you're using the chat if this is your first time joining, or if you're a repeat attendee, so that way the rest of you guys can get connected with the other attendees, because we're all about making this business better, putting great deals together. We don't have it all figured out, but we certainly have people in our corner that are a lot smarter than us, that we're leaning on for guidance in this kind of uncertain time. I see all the news and everybody's like talking about, oh, the market's crashing, and yeah, you are going to see a change, but if it went inflated an additional 5, 10, 15, 20% than what it should have, then going down 10, 15, 20% is not something we should be deathly afraid of. We've been expecting a correction for 5 years now. It's crazy. But yeah, any other questions? Did I miss anything? I see some questions and answers here. Okay, Devin asked a couple. If you had an extra 2 to 3K to spend on education to help you get into the game, what would you suggest? Right now, I'd say probably save up to 5 and then join Future Flipper. That's probably I'd say that's my first recommendation. But if you only had 2 to 3, I mean, there's also a couple of really good. If you're going direct to seller, I think Steve Trang provides an amazing course. It's only a couple $1,000s too. And if that's if you're going to be predominantly focusing on direct to sell sales and direct to sell marketing there. So I think those are 2 good options for you to get to the next level. Okay, does your analysis drastically differ between flips and burrs? Not really, Devin. Great question. The reason that differs for us is there's only certain kind of property that fit our hold criteria for Southern California, because we're looking to mainly invest in multifamily now in Arizona. So for us, if it's built after 1990 and it's in the Antelope Valley, or it's a short-term rental potential in a Joshua Tree in that area, and we like the property, those will be properties that will hold. But it would just be, I mean, basically, we don't evaluate it that differently when it comes to the numbers. It's just more, okay, this property we want to keep. So instead of flipping it, we're going to start working on the refinance right at the end of the rehab. So that's kind of the way we look at it. It's more, it's just a property we want to keep. And it will, but the analysis does not really differ very much. They still have to kind of meet our numbers, because we have to be able to flip it if in case we don't want to hold it, something changes in what we're looking to do with it, right? And if it doesn't hit the flip numbers, then it's definitely not going to hit the burn numbers. So we want to make sure that that's kind of the way we look at it. How did you come up with the 330 ARV? Comps to support or hoping for that?
I believe she meant 230.
230, yeah. So yeah. You went through that. I think you went through that. Maria, hi. How do you partner with a legitimate investor when you're a beginner, have money and credit, but want to get hands-on experience and prefer to collaborate with experienced investor? Okay, so that's a great question. Yeah. At first, I think you need to identify like the type of investor that you kind of want to be or be like. So I think that's kind of the first step. And then there's different ways you could either bring money to the table. You could go out there and then find a deal and then bring the money to the table. But it says here that you have money and credit. So yeah, I think we just offer that, have money and credit to your investors. How can I get involved and work with you directly? And then if you're finding people that you want to work with and you're offering them money and or potentially some of your credit, I mean that could be definitely win-win. You could come across a wholesaler that maybe doesn't have the money, doesn't have the credit, but he has a good deal. You could partner up with somebody like that. So yeah, let me know if that answered your questions, but there's a couple of different ways for you to partner up. Okay. What else? Did we miss any other questions, guys? I think we're coming up here on a couple more minutes. Checking the chat. I think everybody's been doing a great job of chatting and or asking questions. See anybody in Cleveland?
A question from Pete, your realtor. He says, he says, besides network, where do you find your contractors when doing projects in different cities? For example, the ones only go to certain cities, or do you strictly stick with network, ? Or referral contractors?
Great question. So we do both. I wish I could tell you that I was working off of all referrals and that I was working with these people that had already worked for people that I know, but that's just not the case. So we do both. We'll go to Home Depot early, go to the pro desk, go and see the guys out there that are getting after it early, network with them. We'll obviously ask for referrals from our network, and then we also look on Yelp. I mean, we do a variety of things to like source contractors in the areas, especially if we don't have crews in the area. Or like with Vegas, we reached out to a contractor, a friend of ours, and we reached out to like 3 or 4 investors, and we got already a kind of a list of people that we can interview and bid out once we get that project started in the next week or so. In Hawaii, I literally had to fly in a crew after firing 2 crews. I'm not kidding you guys. I had to fly in a crew and house them in my house so they could finish the house. And now we flew in a project manager to go do that one because there was such a lack of people. So it kind of changes on the way you source it, but for the most part, you want to try to work with referrals primarily if you can. Cool.
Yeah, great question right there.
I think we kind of, if you guys have any other questions, we could wrap this one up. I think you guys gotten some value on kind of what we've seen in the market. The kid here, the killer, our acquisitions director here, Eliam, has kind of shared with you guys how we look at deals, what we're doing right now, gotten an update. If you guys don't have any questions, I think we'll wrap this one up.
Yeah, and if you have any further questions as well outside of this in webinar, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I'm happy to help anyone out, analyze deals or just talk about how to get into real estate investing. Because I remember, jumping in at the beginning, not knowing a single clue, not knowing what escrow was, not knowing what the terms were. So I remember being fearful and, kind of being nervous when jumping into it.
Yeah, but just make sure you guys take action. Number one, right? Eliam didn't know much about real estate about a year ago. Now, I mean, the kid is hosting a webinar with me. Already has working on his 5th acquisition. And this kid is like half my age. I'm 40. He's like 21. So it's like, I mean, there's no excuses. He drove hours and hours to go to a meetup to meet us, and then he kept on showing up. And now, I mean, the guy's killing it. So just an example, we want to show you guys that it is possible, show you what we're working on. But we'll see you guys next week on the flip side. Let us know if you need anything. Let's get it.